If you're thinking about buying or selling real estate in the Pittsburgh region in the coming year, you need to watch this video. I'm gonna do a full breakdown of what is happening right now in the housing market in the Pittsburgh area. So you need an expert like myself to break it down for you, show you the data, so you can better understand that if you are buying or selling in the coming months, you can make the best decision possible how to navigate the current market. So stay tuned to this video where I'm gonna break it all down, I'm gonna give you observations of what I'm seeing on the ground as a real estate agent, and then backing that up with actual data from the MLS so that you can better understand the current housing market. By the way, if you are a potential seller out there in the Pittsburgh region in the coming year, you're gonna wanna stay tuned to the end of this video where I provide a data-proven strategy to get you the maximum value for the sale of your home. My name is Mark McClinchie, and I'm a local real estate agent here in the Pittsburgh region. I started my business back in 2019 after a long career in education as a teacher and school administrator. I have lived in Pittsburgh almost my entire life, and it is an amazing place to live, and I love sharing these videos about what's happening in the Pittsburgh region. So I started a YouTube channel years back to cover the neighborhoods, the school districts, and all things living in and around the Pittsburgh region. So check out my YouTube channel for more content. Let's get started with today's video. So our first topic, we're gonna go into the shift that is happening between two different types of buyers. So when people talk about the housing market, one of the first statistics that often comes up are mortgage interest rates. Everybody wants to know what's the rate, which direction are they heading in, and they have a major impact on the housing market. And that is definitely true in today's market, where we are seeing two types of buyers. One is a rate-sensitive buyer that is a little bit nervous as rates are increasing. And then the other type of buyer are the buyers that are sort of immune to rate increases and rate volatility. So they are people that either have to move and they're just making the move with the best information they can, getting the best rate they can at the time, or they might be a cash buyer, or they might have a lot of cash reserves. So I'm recording this video in early August of 2026. And so I'm taking a deep dive into the West Penn multi-list to find you some data points that can help you better understand what's happening. So let's look at this chart right here. All right, so in this graph, we're looking at 2 different months of all sales that closed in the West Penn multi-list. These are for all single family homes that were sold in July of 26. And then I went back a few months and looked at April 2026. So not that long ago, but the rates were different. Back in April of 2026, the average interest rate, mortgage interest rate, was hovering around 6%. We've seen an increase, due to the conflict in the Middle East and other reasons and the costs of everything going up. So interest rates are increasing. And now here we were, just finished July of 2026. The average rate was 6.5%. Those were the buyers that were closing in July of 2026. So now this graph gets into details about what type of financing they were using and if the rate increase had an impact on the type of buyers that were using specific types of financing. And yes, we can see that there is rate sensitivity here. When the rates were 6%, we had 21% of cash buyers, we had 55% of conventional buyers. FHA, you can see, is 13.5, and the VA is 6.25. Now, when we move to July of 2026, only a few months later, the rates have increased and we see more cash buyers. We see more conventional buyers. So people that probably are putting down 10, 15, 20% or more, they're not as rate sensitive. So the ratio of cash and conventional buyers increases by quite a bit. Whereas the people using FHA and VA loans, those are decreasing. As rates climb, those people are maybe backing out, they're sitting on the sidelines, they are not taking up as much of a share of the buyer pool as rates increase. So I think this illustrates really well what is happening currently in the Pittsburgh specific housing market. Right now, we can see that there's a larger group of cash buyers and well-capitalized buyers that are taking advantage of the rate-sensitive buyers that are kind of backing out. They're getting less competition from those other buyers, and they're pushing forward and getting homes under agreement and closing on them, which in reality is really just adding to the affordability crisis and the gap between different types of buyers that are in different financial positions. But I will leave you in this section on a positive note that if you put it into context, Pittsburgh is still one of the most affordable housing markets in the country. So yes, we're seeing some things happening across the nation and certainly within the Pittsburgh Pittsburgh region. But if you compare it, what are your alternatives, particularly if you're someone relocating to the Pittsburgh area and maybe you have choices, Pittsburgh's gonna be at the top of that list of affordability. So now let's make a transition from who is doing the buying to what are they buying. There's been a big shift in the types of homes that are being bought. Let's take a look at that now. So this is one of my favorite topics that I've mentioned in multiple videos recently, and that is sort of the two-tiered market or a bifurcated market, right? We have two types of homes being sold. One is an extreme seller's market. The other is a pretty loaded buyer's market. And it all is on the condition and move-in readiness of the home. Not surprising, the more move-in ready home that you put on the market, it's gonna do really well. Those homes are selling very, very quickly for top dollar. All the buyers are competing for those move-in ready homes. Why? It goes back to my previous topic, where people just don't have the funds. They don't have those extra funds laying around. And so right now there's a premium on move-in ready homes that don't need work and are completely turnkey, as opposed to the homes that do need a lot of renovations. So there's a lot of issues with the homes that need a lot of work are definitely in a totally different market. So let me show you some data from the West Penn multi-list that'll illustrate this point. So here we have a graph of all homes that have recently sold in Mount Lebanon in the last 6 months. I wanted to pick a specific community, so I decided to pick the one that I probably know the best. It didn't make sense to do the entire region. Obviously, real estate is local, hyper-local, very specific. So I'm giving you just one example, and if you'd like other data that's coming from other areas or other communities, just reach out to me. I'd be glad to pull that for you so you can see it yourself. But I do think this is representative of what's happening around the region. So in the last 6 months, I've got the bar graph on the left side shows all homes that were sold in 7 days or less. And it's showing you the ratio of the sales price to the list price. The median list price for homes that were sold in less than 7 days was $490,000. That sale price, when they closed 30, 40 days later, was $515,000. So those sellers that end up selling their home in the first week are getting 106% of what their asking price is. Now let's compare that to over on the right side, sellers who don't sell the first week. So they sold on day 10, they sold on day 30, and this means under agreement. This doesn't mean actually a closing date, right? This just means how long was it available for sale actively on the market? When did it go under agreement? So on the left side, those went under agreement in less than 7 days. On the right side, it took longer than 7 days. There is a dramatic difference in there, right? So you're losing, tons and tons of money if you don't sell in the first 7 days. So that is something to be aware of both as a buyer and a seller. So this is valuable information. We can see the median list price was just around $400,000 and the median sales price was $390,000. So that is a 99%. Still pretty high. You're still paying close to full ask. So, this data is really important. So what you see in this graph is a huge gap that is entirely based on the condition of the home. In addition to the condition of the home being one of the major factors of whether your home sells quickly or it takes longer to sell, is how you price the home. So this should give any seller tremendous pause about being too aggressive or overpricing their home. If you go too high, you're gonna end up over on the right side of that bar graph and you will get much less than you asked for. So keep that in mind, that the winners right now are the ones that are pricing it fairly and they are making sure that they get the maximum attention that first week, and those sellers are the ones that are doing extremely well. On the flip side, if you're a buyer, be careful about jumping into those shiny objects and saying, oh, this is a brand new listing, let's go after this, I love everything about it. You will pay a premium for that. So if you're okay with that, just be aware that that's the market you're in. By the way, if you found this video and you currently live outside of the Pittsburgh area and you're considering a relocation to the Pittsburgh region, I invite you to download my Pittsburgh relocation guide. There's a QR code on your screen. There's a link in the description below. You're going to find a lot of great details about what it's like living in the Pittsburgh region. You'll also get a deep dive into several of the most popular communities with the clients that I work with the most often. Those are the communities that are requested most often. So you'll learn about the schools, about the real estate market, about why people like living in those areas. So please download that relocation guide today and start your research. And if you have any questions, please reach out directly. I'd be glad to help walk you through it and help prepare you for a potential move to the Pittsburgh region. The final observation I want to share as I work with buyers and sellers every single day in the Pittsburgh housing market is that homes priced under $300,000, homes that are sort of entry level for at least the Pittsburgh area, these are becoming more and more difficult to sell. They're becoming more and more difficult to buy. And part of it has to do obviously with affordability and people being able to afford the repairs and the necessary improvements on homes of that age and in that price range, depending on the community. So let's take a deeper dive into what's happening in the under 300,000 market in the Pittsburgh region. So what the graph in front of you is explaining is for the last 5 years, we're looking at what number of listings failed. They terminated, they went expired. I don't have the data whether they actually came back on the market and sold, but this is just the number of starts and stops that would happen to a listing that entered the market and then it didn't leave the market by selling. It left the market because it withdrew and then it expired. We're looking at homes on the left side of the graph that are under 300,000, sort of what I'm calling the entry level market. And then over on the right side, we're looking at homes in that sort of move up buyer area in that $500,000 to $800,000 range. And what I want you to notice is what is the change in the baseline. So if we go back 5 years to 2021, the percentage of listings for homes under 300,000 that failed was 7.4%. That has increased to 2026 number this current year, and that has increased to 9.6. That is a 28% change of more failing. So we're seeing a higher rate of homes that are under 300 that are terminating and failing and going off the market. Whereas our baseline for the 500 to 800,000 is a little more stable. It went from 10% to 11%, so that is a 9% increase. So the drift that has happened over the last few years shows you right here that at lower price points, those homes are terminating at faster. It's becoming more and more common. And so there was a period here, again, anecdotally, I was working this past fall in 2025, and just the number of buyers that were, for lots of different reasons, but many deals, typically I'm seeing a termination rate in my business around 5%. So 1 out of every 20 deals, you get in there, you do inspections, and you just can't come to an agreement on a path forward with the seller for lots of different reasons. Maybe the house got inspected and had so many issues, or maybe it had some normal issues, but the seller didn't want to budge. Lots of different things happen during those negotiations. But ultimately, if it terminates, then the buyers, gives up on it and then starts looking for other homes. That was happening very frequently, and that trend has continued in my own business. So I'm seeing it used to be 5%. It went as high as 15 or even 20% these past couple months. This past spring, summer, it hasn't been as bad, but that is a trend that you see here in the data that I think a lot of buyers are looking for those move-in ready homes. They don't have a lot of extra cash. Sellers also, they're selling. They don't have a ton of extra cash to make repairs. Maybe they've maxed out on the assist that they can give the buyer. So some of these deals are just terminating that when they get under agreement. We definitely have very old housing stock. So now that you have a better understanding of what is actually happening in the Pittsburgh real estate market, I do want to give a tip specific to buyers and then a separate tip specific to sellers. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the time of this recording, it's early August of 2026, and we're finishing up the summer market here in the Pittsburgh region, heading into fall. And if you are a buyer thinking about buying in the Pittsburgh region, I think fall is going to be a great time. Traditionally, fall is a good time. Generally see increases of inventory. You see a lax of bidding wars that are happening in the fall. And I think there's going to be no better opportunity for some buyers heading into the fall, but I want you to pay attention to what type of home you're going to go after. I am sure there still will be turnkey homes that are going to be listed in September and October that will attract all the buyers, but you're going to be competing. There still will be plenty of buyers out there that you'll compete against, and you will get into bidding wars, and you will have to do things like go way over asking, maybe 5-10% over asking. You might have to skinny down inspections, or a disturbing trend I've seen is people waiving inspections. But my advice the number one piece of advice that I want for buyers coming out of this video right now is to focus on those homes that have been on the market for 30 days or longer. Just take a close look at them. Ask your real estate agent like myself, an expert, of what's going on with this home. Why isn't it sold? Maybe it's overpriced. Maybe it went back on the market. There could be a lot of reasons why a home is sitting, and too often buyers just ignore it. They're just like, well, I don't really want to pay attention to anything that's been on the market for 45 days or 60 days. But I think there's great opportunities there. So that is my number one piece of advice for buyers out there right now, is take a very, very close look at homes that have been on the market for 30 days or longer. I think there's some great opportunities, especially this fall in the Pittsburgh region. All right, so let's turn our attention to sellers for a moment and talk about what I think is your best option to sell your home for the maximum price that you can. So that obviously is the goal with every seller. You know, sometimes it's speed. You want a quick sale, you want a stress-free sale. I've got strategies for that. But if you also want a strategy that is going to maximize your return and get you the highest price possible, here is the advice. Work with someone like myself that works for Compass. At Compass, we recently, in the last few years, have done a pre-MLS marketing strategy where we are promoting and marketing homes before they get to the MLS. So we have two different phases prior to the MLS phase. We have a private exclusive phase, which allows your home to be available off market, but it still gets exposure through Compass and through anybody that is a Compass agent that has a client working with a Compass agent. They will have access to those homes. So we used to have a rule in all of the MLSs about clear cooperation, that you couldn't really market a home unless you put it in the MLS. That has eroded. It's caused all these kinds of fights with Zillow. So if you look at some national headlines, that Compass and Zillow have been going back and forth. But all of this is about giving seller choice. You know, Zillow is going to put their spin on it of what it's like. But at the end of the day, as a seller, you get to decide how you want your home marketed. If you work with someone like myself that has pre-marketing, we're going to put you into that private exclusive. Then we're going to transition to coming soon. Great thing about coming soon is that you still get a little more exposure. So now you're on compass.com, publicly available website. We have also partnered with Redfin. And so that has millions and millions of viewers as well. So your home, even though it's not in the MLS, is going to get more exposure. Now we can test out the price. We can kind of get feedback. It's definitely a smaller group of people, but we can do some things that we can't do once we hit the MLS. Once we hit the MLS, the clock starts ticking on how many days it's been on the market, and all these negative factors, especially if it's on Zillow, has all these things about its flood factor. And these are not, you know, these are just factors that they've come up with, that they say there's a good house. They come up with their Zillow Zestimate, which is often incredibly wrong. Ask any real estate agent. The Zestimate is wildly all over the map. Usually it's way under what it should be. So here's the data that I want to share with you right now. Sellers that utilized phased marketing have closed their homes for 4.6% more than those homes that went to the MLS directly. That's a no-brainer, right? People that did pre-marketing. So this doesn't say that they sold it before they got the MLS. Maybe they just primed the pump. The other stat that I want to share with you is that pre-marketed homes go under contract 34% faster once they become active. So once they do get to the MLS, because not all of them sell right away, the idea is just to sort of get the word out there, get the feedback out there. So you're kind of, you know, testing the market. That's the whole key. So that when you do list, you list and you have the right price, you have the right marketing strategy, and those homes that did phased marketing are selling 34% faster than those homes that did not do any marketing before it hit the MLS. So if you are thinking about selling, particularly this fall in the Pittsburgh region, and you want to learn more about my phased marketing strategies, please reach out directly. We can set up a consult. I can visit your home, kind of talk you through what your options are. But phased marketing is producing higher results for sellers right now. And again, I imagine many of the viewers of this video are probably thinking about a relocation to the Pittsburgh area. And maybe you've done all your research. You've already downloaded that relocation guide and you've been binge watching my videos for a long time. If you are ready to get a little more serious, go to that next phase, I encourage you to fill out my buyer consult form. There's a QR code on the screen right now. There's a link in the description. This is to book an appointment with me directly. Doesn't mean you're committed. We can just kind of hash it out, kind of talk through what your options are, but you can tell me in advance through this form a little bit about what you're looking for, what your timeline is, what your needs are, what your goals are. And so we will set up an appointment. and we'll kind of talk through how I might be able to help you. You can ask me tons of questions. We can develop a plan that'll help you get to the Pittsburgh region, ultimately buy a home, buy your dream home, get settled in, make it as stress-free as possible. Obviously, relocating from one state to another city is very difficult, very challenging, but that is the core of my business, is helping people from out of state move to the Pittsburgh region. So there isn't anything I haven't seen before. I'd love to guide you to make that transition for you as seamless as possible. Thank you for watching and welcome to Pittsburgh.